Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. And don't forget to listen to the end of the story, guys, to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. My late ex-husband and I were married for over 30 years. I thought we'd grow old together, that we'd spend our retirement traveling and spoiling grandchildren. He was my first love, and for a long time, I believed that he'd be my only one till death parts us. But then, in his late 50s, he shattered my world. He confessed that he'd been having an affair. The woman was an intern at his company, young enough to be our daughter. As if that wasn't devastating enough, she was pregnant with his child. I can't describe the pain I felt. It was as if my entire life had been a lie. I'd spent decades caring for our family, supporting his career, raising our daughter, and suddenly, I was faced with the fact that all those years he'd betrayed me, not just once, but repeatedly. I tried to make sense of it. Was it a midlife crisis? Did he feel trapped in our marriage? I asked him these questions, but the answers didn't matter. What mattered was that he'd broken our family. I divorced him, even though it was one of the hardest decisions I'd ever made. I didn't want to end my marriage. I didn't want to throw away all the years we'd spent together. I didn't want to end up alone in my late 50s. I felt that nobody will love me again, and I will die alone and miserably. But I couldn't stay with a man who'd so profoundly disrespected me and our life. Our daughter, who was 28 at the time, was heartbroken. She'd always been close to her father, and learning about the affair was a blow to her as well. Especially because her father's mistress was younger than her. I leaned on her during those difficult months, and she leaned on me. After the divorce, I tried to move on. I focused on my own life, rebuilt my social circle, and started spending more time on hobbies and interests I'd put on hold during my marriage. I still cared about my ex-husband on some level. How could I not, after all those years? But I kept my distance. I didn't want to see him. I didn't want to hear about his life and about the child he had with his mistress. 2 months after his affair baby was born, my ex-husband died of a heart attack. It was sudden and unexpected. Despite everything that had happened between us, I felt a deep sadness. This was the man I'd loved, the father of my child, and he was gone. I grieved him, but I didn't attend the funeral. I didn't think I could handle seeing his mistress there, holding the baby that had ultimately torn my family apart. My daughter was furious with me for my decision, but I just couldn't step over myself and go. But then a year later, that woman, his mistress, died in a car accident. My daughter called me to tell me the horrible news. She told me that she was contacted by mistress's mother, who asked my daughter to take the affair baby in, as she is a disabled widow who's not capable of raising a child. It was tragic, of course, and I felt a twinge of pity for the baby. But I didn't think much more about it. My life was my own again, and I didn't want to be drawn back into the web of pain and betrayal my ex-husband had left behind. I thought my daughter wasn't even considering taking in the baby. But then she dropped a bombshell. She told me she was going to adopt the baby, her half-sister, my late ex-husband's affair child. I was shocked. I couldn't understand why she would even consider it. She's just a baby, my daughter said. She's innocent in all of this. She also admitted that her and her husband had been struggling to get pregnant for years and saw this as an opportunity to become parents while also giving her half-sister a loving home. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This was the child that symbolized everything that had destroyed our marriage. I told her so. I told her it was a terrible idea, that she was inviting heartache and chaos into her life. But she was determined. She said she couldn't turn her back on her half-sister, especially when there was no one else to take her in. She said she's not going to let her sister grow in foster care or with strangers while she has every opportunity to be there for her. She said she'd already started the adoption process and that she'd hoped I'd be supportive. I wasn't. I couldn't be. I told her that if she adopted that child, I didn't want to see her again. I told her that what she was doing was selfish and cruel, that she was reopening old wounds that I'd spent years trying to heal. She called me heartless. She said I was cold and bitter and that I needed to let go of the past and be a better person. But how could I? That baby wasn't just a child. She was the living reminder of what my ex-late husband did to me and how he broke our family and my life. I tried to explain to my daughter that I wasn't angry at the baby. I knew she was innocent, but I couldn't separate her existence from the pain her father had caused me. My daughter refused to listen. She told me I was making this all about myself and that she was trying to do something good for an innocent child. She went through with the adoption, and her husband took the baby in, gave her a home, and started raising her as their own. I haven't spoken to her since. It's been months, and she hasn't reached out, and I haven't either. I miss her terribly. She's my only child, and the thought of not being part of her life or my future grandchild's life breaks my heart. But every time I think about the baby, I'm filled with resentment and sadness. I can't get past it. So, Reddit. Am I the a-hole for cutting ties with my daughter after she adopted her half-sister, the child of my late ex-husband's affair? It's hard to call OP the a-hole here because she's been through so much. OP's feelings about the child aren't about the baby's actions. Of course, she's innocent, but about what she represents. I do think it's possible OP's daughter sees this as a way to create something positive out of a painful situation. But she's not considering how much this hurts OP. OP is allowed to feel upset, to set boundaries, and to protect herself from future emotional harm. I hope that in time, OP and OP's daughter can find a way to reconnect. But for now, I understand that OP needs to do what's right for her own healing. And now let's hear the community's opinion. Not the a-hole. You're not required to accept the child just because she's innocent. You're dealing with a lot of emotional pain and trauma caused by your ex-husband's betrayal. Expecting you to suddenly embrace a reminder of that betrayal is asking too much. Your daughter's decision may be well-intentioned, but it doesn't change how difficult this situation is for you. I don't think it's fair to label you as heartless when you're still trying to heal from something so painful. While it's sad that you've cut ties, it's also important to set boundaries that protect your mental and emotional well-being. I'm really sorry for everything you've gone through. I'm not sure there's a perfect answer here, but I don't think you're an a-hole. Your feelings are valid, and it's understandable why you'd struggle to accept the child. Your daughter is clearly trying to do something she believes is right, but she's not considering how much this would hurt you. She's not wrong for wanting to adopt the baby, but she is wrong for dismissing your pain and calling you heartless. At the very least, you both need time and space to process this. Maybe one day you'll find common ground, but for now, it's okay to step back if that's what you need. Not the a-hole. I understand your daughter's perspective. She sees an innocent baby who needs love and a home. But what she doesn't see is that, for you, the baby represents one of the most devastating experiences of your life. It's not about the baby herself. It's about what she symbolizes. You're not cruel or heartless for feeling this way. People don't just magically recover from years of betrayal and heartbreak. Your daughter needs to understand that asking you to fully embrace this child is like asking you to relive that pain over and over again. You've set a boundary, and that's okay.
I, 26 female, knew my sister's husband, 29 male, before she, 29 female, did. The husband, Max, and I worked together 8 years ago, and I thought he and my sister Mary would hit it off, so I introduced them. They've been together 6 years, married 3 of those, and they have a little girl who is 2, Maggie, my niece, who I adore. Over the course of the first lockdown, I lost both my husband and my job. Max and Mary let me stay with them for 3 months, during which I took care of Maggie while Max and Mary were working. I then got a job, came into some money, and moved out. Edit. I had moved out by July 2020. My new schedule has me busy Saturday through Monday, so Mary asked me if I could keep helping out with Maggie on Tuesday through Friday. Max insisted on paying me. Mary has gone back to working in person, while Max is able to work from home. But a lot of it is meetings, so he can't take care of Maggie despite being at home. So I'm still nannying for them. Mary started acting weird when she went back to work. She commented a few times if I looked messy or flushed, and I'd be like, "I've been chasing a toddler around all day." And she would just nod, but looking back now, the implication is clear. I cooked dinner a few times, and the last time she snapped at me that she could cook for her family, and I took the hint and never did that again. I also thought things with her and Max got tense, but it wasn't my marriage, so I didn't want to butt in. Though I did tell them both that as Mary's sister and Max's friend, if they needed to talk, I was here. I'm pregnant. Mary has asked for a DNA test because she thinks that Max could be the father. I've agreed because Max and I are just friends. But if Mary is desperate enough to ask, then I figure she needs this. Max is upset, but agrees with me that if she has to ask, the test is warranted. We've booked it, but it hasn't been done yet. And in the meantime, Mary has said that she wants Max out. Max protested, but she insisted. So now Max is staying with me, which is probably the worst route we could have taken. But Max has no other options. No family in the area, friends siding with Mary, asked to leave at short notice. Mary is now even more convinced. We just want things back how they were. Max wants his wife, and I want my sister. But Mary is not listening to any reason. We're growing concerned about her. We don't think there are any mental health issues, or that Maggie is unsafe with Mary. But Mary's sudden and certain conclusions that we've had an affair has come, from our perspective, completely out of left field. And she's kicked Max out and kept him from Maggie over it without having any proof. We're just worried about her, but we don't know how to address it without her accusing us of something. How do we get things back to normal? Edit. I don't know who the father is. I told her it was a one-night stand, which it was. I stayed with them for 3 months, from April through July 2020, and I'm 4 months pregnant. So I got pregnant long after I moved out. I get weird vibes from this post. It's not that I think y'all are having an affair, but the way you talked about him, it gives me the feeling there could have been some crossed boundaries. Max shouldn't be staying with you, though, if you honestly want things to get better. That's a terrible idea. My mom and dad divorced when I was very young, and he took my older brothers with him. He married my stepmom soon after, and they had 2 more kids. I'm not going to lie, I always felt he preferred them, and resented him for it. My mom, on the other hand, worked herself to the bone to give me a good life, sacrificed so much to give me the best education possible, and invested in my potential and future. Because she spent so much to give me a good life, my dad helped here and there, but never happily. She was never able to buy a house and always lived on rent. Against all expectations, except for my mom, I actually ended up living a fairly financially comfortable life. So I bought my mom a house. I saved for a while, and even though it's not the biggest, it's in a good neighborhood, big backyard, and enough space for the 2 of us. My mom was so happy, guys. She made this big post on Facebook, thanking me and saying she was so proud and everything. My dad then called me and in a joking tone asked, "Well, where is mine?" Which was awkward. He kept implying I was going to buy him a house too and whatnot, until I basically said it wasn't going to happen. He has a house. It's my stepmother, actually. It's a good one too, and to be frank, he has another 4 kids to share the cost of a new house. I don't see how I should be the one to buy 2 houses. He stopped talking to me. My brothers keep saying it was unfair to not give him anything, that I clearly preferred my mom, and the rest of the family is saying this too. I don't even have the money to buy another house, and I actually wanted to buy a house for myself, you know? And he does have a house. I just don't want my mom to keep worrying about rent and to have her own place. How can I make them understand the situation is different? Just tell them it's your house and you live in it, and it's also your mother's house as she lives in it. He doesn't live there. He has his own house. If he wants a house, he can go buy one. He didn't work his arse off to provide for you. Your mom did. Your dad is playing victim. Weak as piss. If he is too stupid to understand, that's his problem. It has nothing to do with anyone. Buy what you want for whoever you want. If your brothers care so much, tell them to buy him a house. When I was about 9 years old, I realized my mom was having an affair for years on my military dad. I did not say anything as I was really worried what would happen if I said anything. When I was about 12 years old, I found my dad looking at pictures of our family and tearing up, and I couldn't take it, and I told him about mom's affair. Fast forward 5 years, and I live full-time with Dad and his new wife and stepsister, and our lives have improved so much since leaving Mom. Well, Grandpa on Dad's side has been pressuring my dad to get a paternity test, as he wants to make sure that I am his granddaughter. This is getting really intense, as Grandpa may pass away soon, and he says he doesn't know if he should leave us anything if he doesn't even know. Well, my dad has resisted this for years and saying it doesn't matter. But now things have changed as I have half siblings on the way. I am totally happy and fine with this, but for some reason, my dad has started to change his mind about the paternity DNA test thing. He says he is worried that I won't receive help with my college or anything. But I'm worried he is wondering if he should care about me or just my new sibling. I am not sure how much money my grandpa has, but he does have a big house and a lot of property, so I guess it's important. I would rather just continue with our relationship how it is, but I don't know what to do now, and I haven't been able to sleep over this. What do you think I should do? There is nothing you can do. This is your father's decision. It sounds to me as though your father didn't care about the test and loves you unconditionally. It sounds like your grandfather, on the other hand, may have some other dated notions. Sit down with your father and tell him exactly what is on your mind. My daughter is biracial and looks a lot more like my spouse's side than me. So sometimes we've gotten looks and generated some confusion, but there's never been any real drama before now. She's 3, and we were in a store that she loves. When it was time to go, she wasn't having it and refused to move. Kept pulling away when I tried to grab her hand, crying, whining, etc. Thankfully, it wasn't a full-blown fallout tantrum, but I hate being that parent, so I wanted to get her out before it escalated. That's when an employee, a woman who I would guess was in her late 40s, approached us and said, "Hi, is this your child?" I said yes. My daughter wasn't paying her much attention and still crying and pulling. That's when the woman goes, "Do you have a picture of her in your phone or wallet that you can show me?" I was a little taken aback and said, "Excuse me?" And she said that would prove she was actually my child. Now, that's when I went full on, "Let me speak to your manager," because I felt like this was going too far for my comfort. She looked uncomfortable and tried to keep talking, but I cut her off and said again that I wanted the manager. Finally, she brought him over. I explained what had happened, and he apologized for the confusion. Ironically enough, I got one of those auto messages that day asking me to fill out a survey on my experience at the store. Because I rated all the questions as 1, lowest score, the survey invited me to send a follow-up email. And I ended up emailing corporate the whole story with the name that had been on the employee's name tag and the store number. Eventually, I got a follow-up email. While it didn't say the employee had been fired per se, it did say at one point, "This person is no longer employed by store." So either she was fired or quit. Also, in case it matters, I'm a city council member and do a lot of philanthropic work in my community, and that information would show up if anyone Googled my name or email address. So I don't know if that played a role in what happened with regard to what happened with the woman's job either. Am I the a-hole? I'm giving you a yes, the a-hole. Not for anything that happened in the store, but for bringing it up in the survey. When you left the store, the issue was resolved. You had brought the manager's attention to the employee's actions, and the manager had stepped in to correct the employee. It's possible that the manager fired the employee at this point, but it's more likely that he trained her in the appropriate behavior for this situation. This is the best outcome for everybody. You and other customers won't be hassled again. The employee keeps her job, and the manager knows that the employee won't make this mistake again. But by filling out that survey the way you did, you directed the baleful gaze of corporate towards this employee, quite possibly causing her termination. Escalating the situation like this may have made you feel better, but it was unnecessary and didn't improve the outcome for anyone. That's an a-hole move, my friend. My 26 female, husband, 31 male, got drunk last night and started making some very off-color jokes at my sister, 18 female, and it culminated in him slapping her butt in front of me and my sister's boyfriend, 20 male. Now, understandably, my sister is extremely uncomfortable around my husband, and she had to physically restrain her boyfriend from bashing my husband's face in. Now, all of us live in my father's, 56 male, house. My sister said she no longer feels comfortable living in the same house as my husband, and it's either him or her. Well, obviously, my mother demanded that my father kick my husband out, and if she comes to visit and my husband is still here, she will call the police on him for harassment, she said. My father then got very upset at my mother, as he and she have been divorced for 15 years, and he detests that she continues to try to call the shots in his house. He had a talk with my husband and told him that if anything like this happened again, he would be out on his butt. My husband then called my mom in an attempt to smooth things over, and she said that it is not up to her, it is up to my sister, and I agree. Which brings us to now. My sister just got home from her boyfriend's mother's house, and upon seeing my husband still here, began packing her bags. My husband is trying to talk to her, but she refuses to speak to him. I don't know what to do. I agree that what he did crossed a line, and I had warned him multiple times before that when he is drunk, he behaves inappropriately, but he never saw it as a big deal. I also know that a lot of this reaction is driven by my sister's boyfriend, who is now not comfortable with them being together without him around. I can attest to the fact that we have all three lived together multiple times, and this is the first time something even remotely inappropriate has happened. And even when she was younger, he would take care and worry about her as an older brother would, telling boyfriends not to hurt her and giving her advice when asked. He would even stay up nights when she would go out with guys to make sure she got home safe. He would do the same for my mother when we stayed with her. Now, due to the current situation, I am not currently working, so we cannot afford an apartment at the moment. We live in a very expensive city, and since we have a young son, I have to stay home until school in our area reopens. Any advice on what I can do? Why are you defending your husband when he has done this before in the past? Been warned about it and did nothing to stop it is beyond me. Guess what? Your husband and his crappy, stupid attitude have just cost yourselves your living space. My only advice is to start either looking for a lawyer to divorce his stupid arse, or to start looking for somewhere else to live. He brought this on both of you, and if you want someone to blame for your predicament, you need look no further than the imbecile you married. Edit. I need to make clear I know my husband needs to leave. I am in no way arguing he doesn't. I was trying to paint a clear picture of him as a person, to know if I should go with him or no. He is a really good dad. Of the two of us, he is the better parent, but this behavior is unacceptable and inexcusable. I am in no way trying to undermine that. Also, I need to know how to handle my family. Through all this, I'm so embarrassed I can't even look at them. Edit 2. We also have to deal with the fact that my father, who owns the house, told my husband he didn't have to go unless he did it again, which I think is the actual worst reaction. Final edit. I am just going to state how all of this ended up. Now, I was unaware about the interactions my sister had with my parents, and it was bad, y'all, the same way my parents blew up on my husband, justifiably. They blew up on my sister for absolutely no reason. My mother, who had threatened to call the cops on my husband, had called my sister a homewrecker and told her she had no right to ruin my marriage. What the actual F? My father called my sister a drama queen and told her that if she wanted to go, she could. I would have never in my wildest dreams thought this was the road my parents would take, and now I feel awful for not handling this myself sooner. This morning when I got up, I told my father that we had to kick my husband out, that what he did was unacceptable and he needed to see repercussions for his actions. My father agreed, saying the only reason he didn't throw him out before was because he was scared I would go with him. I told him if I went, it would be an acceptance of his behavior, and he needed to feel the full weight of his actions. I then packed my husband's crap and put it on the front porch for when he got home. I texted him that he had to go, no excuses. And I told my sister that I had thrown out my husband, and that I would let her know when he had picked it all up so she could come home. That's when she told me what our parents had said to her, which did not align at all with what they told me they had talked to her about. I am currently the only person my sister is on speaking terms with, and she has decided to move into her boyfriend's mom's house, and I agree with her decision 100%. Independently of what my husband did, my parents blaming her for victimization just made everything that much worse. I really wish she would have reached out to me yesterday so I could have put everyone in their place. But talking to her today really made me see what an absolute trash person I was.